Good afternoon today. Welcome back to the VIP seat. I was gallivanting around Europe this week, so we are slightly delayed. Sorry about that, but I did have fun and I'm wide awake this morning from my trip. But your co host here, Jesse Naor and Preston Holland, we're back as usual. Welcome to the show.
Jesse, welcome back. Did you have a good time in Europe? What was your number one highlight?
The strudel. I mean, it's just that's like half of the reason I go to Vienna. And also the opera. We went to the opera last week, which was amazing. So, highly recommend Vienna if anyone hasn't been there. Super clean, super nice city, and it's awesome place.
That's cool. No, that's great. Well, it's good to have you back and welcome everybody. We're going to jump right into the first story, which is that Flyhouse has taken over College Game Day from Wheels Up. In a sponsorship that was announced last week, is that Flyhouse is handling transportation for College Game Day and Monday Night Countdown, effectively ending Wheels Up's longstanding relationship with the sports network ESPN. So super interesting here. This is a little press releasey news, but I think that the whole point of that we are kind of mentioning this is to kind of talk about charter advertising as a whole, and maybe how it works. But I think that Flyhouse making a big splash. They were at the Florida-Miami game this past week. For those of us who are Florida fans, unfortunately, it didn't turn out nearly how we had hoped. But saw a lot of Instagram pictures coming from there. But frankly, it was a lot of college kids wearing Flyhouse hats, and I'm not 100% sure that's your core demographic.
Yeah, I think they're following the footsteps of Wheels Up and others. This isn't their first kind of big takeover they've done. They've got, a New York Jets sponsorship they announced a couple months ago, a bunch of different golfing events, hockey. Wayne Gretzky is involved in some sponsorships. They're obviously investing a lot of money in brand recognition and name recognition.
They're also big in Sail GP, which that is like, I mean, people with private jets have a lot of money. Like Sail GP is like everybody's got a private jet, and you're like kind of bragging about how New Year's is. Like that is a different, that's a next level of wealth.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and that's like where I kind of, look, we never, my former charter company never became like a household name or anything. We really kind of relied on like the organic, like local market growth, word of mouth, that sort of thing. And I do wonder, how effective are these things? These sponsorships, $5 to $20 million easy on some of these sponsorship programs in a given year. I would like to know, and maybe someone else can answer this that I can't, like compared to events versus just having like brand name out there with these sponsorships. I don't know how many retail customers it actually brings in off the street, but maybe it's, some much bigger play to make sure they're a household name as they launch a national app. I don't know. What do you think, Preston?
I think if you look at the different sporting events in which you target kind of private aviation flyers. So if you've ever been to Augusta at the Masters, like Gulfstream brings a truck out, like it's a big to do because there's a lot of private jets that come in and out because golf has a really high affinity towards private aviation. You look at NetJets and their sponsorship of Scotty and Bryson and all these different guys inside of golf that are sponsored by private jet companies. Justin Rose is sponsored by Flyhouse. So they've had some success with Justin Rose. But when you think about what does it actually mean for that brand recognition, I just wonder if College Game Day, I mean, I love College Game Day. I watch it, I've been watching College Game Day since the 90s, but it's a fantastic show. I just wonder if that recognition, right? You have the Wheels Up flying in the picker and they pan out to the airport, and it started with King Airs, and then all of a sudden you're seeing XLSs, and now you're starting, towards the end you'd see a Phenom pull up, and it's like, oh, look, the new aircraft. I mean, if you think about the total percentage of people watching the show compared to your target demographic, I'm just not sure it's there. I think, here's my speculation, and this is kind of my thought. I've gone to a couple of these private aviation kind of activations, if you will, at sporting events. And my thought is that it's more for closing the deal than it is for like the top level brand recognition. Because if you can bring somebody in and say, hey, you're a prospect, right? You have your CRM all built out, and you can say, this is $1 million client. We need to give them a extra special experience. I think that's what Kenny Dichter was so good at. Like, and that's one of the reasons why Wheels Up was really good, was he understood that to close the deal, you needed to just give them something a little bit special. And if you take the $10 million sponsorship and you distribute that up against 1,000 customers, it kind of becomes a little bit more, palatable if they're all $1 million clients. So I
Yeah.
think that a lot of these sponsorships and activations are more for closing the deal than it is for like top of funnel brand recognition. But again, is college football that? The beautiful thing about college football was it's a King Air. And so, you can kind of squint and justify a King Air trip with 8 people going to a game. You skip hotels, right? Like, I think that's
Right.
the advantage that Wheels Up had. I don't think Flyhouse has that.
Yeah, maybe not. And I tend to agree with you. I think it's closing deals, but it's also like customer stickiness. All sorts of companies have different kind of signature events that happen throughout their year. And it's like, hey, if you're a, Bell Helicopter customer, for example, you're going to, the NASCAR event and, where they have their suite and everything else at Bristol every year. Actually, I'm not even sure if they're doing that anymore. That used to be a thing that they did.
Right, exactly. Well, and you have the Wheels Up tent that used to be at the Masters, and you have,
Hmm.
there's some MLB activations at the World Series. Like, you have these kind of if type events,
Right.
but if is not live on
It's
TV.
different.
I
Right.
remember one. Here's my favorite brand activation that has ever been on TV was Icon Aircraft, and this was 100% organic. They didn't pay TV rights for this, but somebody during the Masters landed an Icon on one of the lakes right next to Augusta National. I think it was like
That's cool.
a pond that you actually had to like come up on. And when they landed on it, all of a sudden the TV broadcast cuts over to it, and it was like, oh
Look at
my
this
gosh,
thing.
like there's an Icon. And I remember seeing it. I was friends with the marketing director at the time. I was like, dude, how much you pay for that slot? He was like, that was an owner that just wanted to go get close to the action and went and landed out there. It's just free.
Nice. Nice. Yeah. I mean, not everybody has an aircraft that looks like that. That gets
Yeah,
instant publicity.
exactly. Well, speaking of media moments, we're going to go to social media where we're going to go to the Mile High Madness segment. This is where Jesse and I bring our favorite moments from social media and bring it forward to you, the listener. If you're watching on YouTube, this is a much more immersive experience, but we try for those who just listen and are driving the car, we try and explain what we're showing as well. So I've got one, and it's actually a repeat offender that I've got. But Jesse, do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
No, go for it, Preston.
All right. So we all remember this dude who is on Instagram. And the more that I watch him, the more that I realize that one, he's a detailer. And again, we're back to the detailing guys. They create a little bit of chaos because they're like, oh yeah, look at all this money that I'm making, right? So it's like we could just do detailer guy stuff for days. But this guy, you detailers on Instagram, he's been here before. We're going to bring him back to the top. But here he is. He's going to talk about, run us through the numbers of a King Air.
Investors might just bust. This is an incredible deal. This is a Beechcraft King Air, one of the most versatile and in-demand turboprops on the market. Delta's own charter company, Wheels Up, actually runs a fleet of these.
False. I mean, they used to, but
Yeah.
they're getting rid of them. I mean, good try. You're not up to date. We just talked about this, but yep.
Listing price is 1.7
Also, they were running King Air 350i's. This is a King Air C90.
million,
just
and we're
throwing
buying
it
it
there.
cash. So let's run the numbers. The cost of charter is $2,500 an hour, which includes fuel but not maintenance.
This is one of those numbers that just hurts my brain because he's like, the cost to charter it is $2,500 an hour, includes fuel but not maintenance. Are you saying that your direct operating costs are $2,500 an hour,
Yeah, like what
or
are
are
you
you
talking about?
say and that's not just fuel? Like, if you're just saying fuel's less than that in a King Air C90, so it's like that number just doesn't make sense. I'm like, where'd you get that number?
Let's assume it gets booked 65% of the year with an average flight time of 2 hours. That'll bring us a straight.
I think the average flight time on a King Air is like 1.1 hours. So,
If that, yeah.
go ahead and make your assumptions here.
Now let's
1.2
talk
million,
operating
crew pilot, single pilot. So you're going to convince somebody to
No.
fly 60% of the year nonstop for $75,000 a year, and you're going to fly single pilot. Best of luck.
here.
Nope.
In shop.
That's the other great part, is your insurance is $12,000 when you're flying single pilot. Like, no, it's not. It's like
No.
2 or 3 times that.
Detailing $350,000.
Oh, there it is. The detailing is
Oh, the detailing again.
$350,000. He's a
He
detailer.
did that last time.
Yeah, I know. Well, he's a detailer. So like,
What?
he's trying to preach his own book.
That's
Catering
a lot of money.
$120,000.
Also, catering is a straight bill through. FBO fees is a straight bill through.
Hangar fees are going to be
Also-
$45,000.
Also, like if you're flying in a King Air, you are not ordering catering. I mean, you're just
No,
gonna like have the
that's a
pilot pick you up some
DoorDash.
McDonald's.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
like what are we
DoorDash, or
talking about?
you're picking it up when you're driving yourself in the rental car. Like you're
Right.
not even you don't even have car service in a King Air
No,
C90. Sorry,
no.
but
$1,000 and maintenance is going to be $90,000.
ha ha ha. Maintenance is going to be $90,000, and we
What?
didn't include it in our direct operating cost on our hourly cost. So, um,
That brings the total operating cost to $752,000 with a net profit of
$752,000.
$433,000, and we fully own the asset. King Airs are actually one of the most commonly used aircraft for medical transport, and we already have a contract in hand with the local hospital for $18,000 a month to keep this aircraft on standby.
18,000 a month to keep the aircraft on standby, but then you're going to go charter it for another 60. It's like I cannot stand these people because I was sent this video. A friend of mine sent me this video and he said, "Tell me where this is wrong." I said, "Where would you like to begin?" From the start, right? Like it's all wrong. But 350K a
Yeah,
year on
it's all wrong.
detailing is hysterical. Yep. They're trying to gaslight everybody into the fact that super high detailing fees is normal. So I have a problem with that personally. But congratulations, you detailers! You go viral on Instagram,
Yeah,
and you make the rest of you make the rest of our stuff challenging. And number one nationwide aircraft detailing service, entertainment purposes only. DM Jet for aircraft detail training. So he's training. Oh, it's one of those trainer. It's secretly actually an online course. He doesn't have actually really like, and try Jobber for free. So he's got some affiliate links in here. That's great. Yeah. Basically, the moral of this story is don't believe everything that you see on Instagram because really it's all a secret front to buy their $197 online course.
oh my gosh, that's what. Wait, does he really have one of those?
Yeah. There's 100. So really it's a
Oh,
$197 WAP course.
oh.
I'm looking at it right now. $7 per month. Break into aviation and scale your detailing business fast.
Per month?
Yeah, per month. $97 per month.
Yeah, don't believe anything on the internet, folks. Only come to the VIP seat. We're the only trusted pseudo news source out
And
there for this
if you
industry.
want to blow money away, you should pay us $197 a month and you can sponsor the podcast. I mean, that's a way better use of money.
Gosh. All right, so mine of the week. I had so many to choose from this week, and this is not really like a business aviation one specifically, but I just can't help it because I thought it was really nerdy. Okay, so it's this guy. I'll describe it for our viewers who are not watching the video version of this, but it's a son who's walking through his dad's multiple simulators at home. I think there's definitely a Boeing in there, some other fighter jet of some kind. And I just have to ask the pilots out there, like, I know that you love flying airplanes, but what other human on this earth has a simulator of their job at their house? Like,
Yeah.
why? Just why? I don't get it. It's not the first time I've seen it. I've seen it multiple times. I just don't know why you want to come home and do the same thing that you already do like every day. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Flying is life, baby. I mean, I guess if you're really into it, I don't
Yeah.
know. I've tried to get into flight simming. I get bored. Like I get bored pretty quickly and then I'm like, okay, now what?
Like I
So
get
that's
kind
my
of like
problem.
having fun with, doing like a fighter jet or like flying the Concorde or something, but like, to have an entire like mocked up cockpit in your house, like especially if you're like a full-time airline pilot and that's the one that you fly all day,
Uh-huh.
why? No.
No, it is quite a choice. Well, speaking of doing work, the Westchester County, the by the seat lawsuit that was out there has been overturned. So
Hmm.
business aviation has been going to work for you. So the federal court smacks down the airport's attack on private jet sharing. So this is a by the seat. A federal court has struck down the attempt to kill services like JSX and others, delivering a ruling that should make every airport authority think twice before trying to regulate private aviation out of existence. And it's not just about one airport. This is huge because it's setting a precedent for all airports who are trying to kill by the seat. And once again, the airlines trying to go after JSX and the by the seat stuff that the rest of us, the rest of they're carving out the first class flyers. Like they go after them, doesn't work again. So it's good
Yeah.
news, I think, for most people in private aviation.
Yeah, it's kind of like this cat and mouse game. I mean, the buy the seat private jet sellers, they keep trying to come up with all these like new and innovative ways of trying to get around the existing rules at airports. One of them, like at Teterboro, you're not allowed to land at the FBO if you hold your scheduled service out for hire online. So apparently some of these people are doing like, okay, you have to be a member to see what flights are available. So you have to become a member, and then that's not considered like holding out to the public. I think we're going to continue to see more of it. I think this is a big win for them, that there is case law now saying like, hey, you receive government funds to run your airport and to repair all your, all your runways, your taxiways, all those things. Like you can't just kick out service providers. And it's not just like the by the seat players. I mean, this has also been an issue with maintenance teams coming on airports and doing things like when you receive federal grant money, that comes with some expectations of being open for business for all types of aviation companies, even these guys.
Yeah, exactly. I would not be surprised if behind all of this hoopla is actually American and Delta and United, like actually like trying to, be like, oh yeah, hey, you guys should be mad about this. And they're like, oh yeah, that's right. We're mad about this. Like it's, these airports are not that smart. But I mean, look, JSX flies from Teterboro. They say that they don't just market scheduled service from Teterboro, but the ridiculousness is that it's an airport trying to block free trade, yet having government, subsidies. So let's be honest, they're going to keep coming after it. The lobby is very strong and they really don't like this. So if you're Alex Wilcox or anybody else in leadership of one of these by the seat providers, like stay on your toes. They're still going to be coming, but this is a win, right? Let's count it up to the wins. And there's been so far so good, lots of wins. I'm flying JSX to NBAA actually, so I hope that they at least can hold out until then.
I think they'll do okay. They've been hanging in there for a while. I think everyone's had doubts about them for a long time, like myself included, but they've managed to just keep playing this game and continuing to beat these lawsuits. But I think it's a game that you have to have money to play because these airports, once they get something in their head, they want to do it. They think they can do whatever they want to, and it takes years to reverse their decisions. So tough game to play.
Yeah, no kidding. And I mean, it's not just JSX. I mean, there's also Aero, who has recently announced they took over the XO by the seat operation between West Palm Beach and New York City.
Mm-hmm.
And they're actually offering fractional now. Fun fact. So they're doing fractional and also by the seat stuff. It's kind of an evolution of their business. But there's a lot of other operators that are doing this Part 380/135, and there's a lot of people. I will let you remain nameless on LinkedIn who are going to go after me about being pro Part 380. To be clear, Part 380 by the seat and JSX is different than a WhatsApp group.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is legal.
This is correct. Well, this is legal, and the WhatsApp groups are very questionably legal, right? Like probably not legal, but maybe on the off chance that they are legal. So please don't come after me in my DMs that that I don't know what I'm talking about. I do. JSX is interesting. So this is good news for the by the seat operators that exist today.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I still think it's like one of these situations where like it looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck. It's Part 121 airline service, but they continue to kind of figure it out and get through. So I don't know. Well, maybe at some point this will just be a normal thing that's done, 5 to 10 years down the road. Uber had the same strategy. So we'll see how they do.
Yep, exactly.
And one thing I neglected to mention when we were in our Mile High Madness segment is that for those of you who have been following us on Instagram and on LinkedIn, you may be aware that Preston's plant in his background is no longer in his background today because we launched a full investigation of that poor plant that was underwatered, unlit. But I'm proud to report that Preston has finally revived his plant a bit.
It's true. So here's my plant. It looks much better.
Oh, yes.
I need to prune. I need to prune some of the dead leaves out of here because they did actually die. Some of the leaves did, but it's looking much better.
Much better.
For a little bit of context, this used to sit on the shelf back here, and it actually blocked like that blue light over there so that you didn't see it as much. But I have since taken it and put it in the sunshine and have watered it. So Nathan from Thoroughbred, I know that you had a lot of questions about my ability to keep a plant alive, and I am happy to announce that it is still alive. So, and if you have any tips and tricks, my wife is like, she's a green thumb, but she she put this plant in my office. It was like, you need some greenery in your office. I said, okay, great. And then she didn't water it. And it's not necessarily that
She put it in your care, Preston.
I know
It's under
that
your
it is
care.
100% my fault. To be clear, I'm not blaming my wife, but I am more of a fake plant guy. Here it is. So anyways, so that's the latest here.
Yeah. So don't make sure you're following us for, you've got your podcast content, but also this premium, research on Preston's ability to grow a plant.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, so in real news that's coming up, so for those of you who haven't listened to it, there was some really interesting podcast content this week, beyond the VIP seat as usual, but on Freakonomics Radio, which I have followed for years. Love that show. It's fascinating. They were starting to dig into the ATC privatization and safety issues, and it actually included Ed Boleyn from National Business Aviation Association. He actually came on to rebut some of the comments that were going down. Really fascinating show. I mean, it's like over 2 hours all in because they did a 2-part episode. But, we're seeing a lot of this coming after private aviation again, which is not new. This is a common tactic. But I think things are brewing. After there was the Wall Street Journal article, now this, we are going to have to fight some kind of fight coming up, or not fight it. I don't know what our best approach is, but it just seems like it's really coming to a head again very soon.
Yeah, this has been interesting, and it was referenced. So the first part came out right before JetNet IQ, and it was referenced a couple of times on stage. And then part 2 came out shortly thereafter. And if you listen to all the different perspectives, are very interesting. One thing that I think should not be lost is the fact that they were talking to an air traffic controller about their day-to-day, and he basically said, yeah, like, it's not really a big deal to have business jets in there. Like, we like the challenge, and sure, it increases workload, but it's not anything significant. Straight into, well, Ed Boleyn, you say that it has no increase, and here's your standard, talking points, and, why is that wrong? And I think that it really drills down to a further point in that there is a misconception from our side too. I think that we are partially to blame, and I will raise my hand to be the first person to say, like, look, I defend it because obviously we have to be knee-jerk reactionary and say, well, no, we don't put any extra strain. We do put extra strain on the system and on the ATC system. I think that the big question is are the ways in which we tax and charge proportionate for the usage of air traffic control systems? I think at its very core, that's what people are trying to ask. And I think for us as an industry, we don't have a really good answer for that. And so I would say my suggestion, if anybody's listening, is get really strong talking points to those questions and say, statistically speaking, we've surveyed data. We've actually taken data. We've looked at WingX data. You could quantify this whole problem with a little bit of ADS-B data and some quants and just say, here's the actual impact. And then here's the proportionate revenue in which we contribute to the system. Be quiet. But the problem is we come from this point of like, well, we bring a lot more economic stimulus to an area. And it's like, okay, but that's not what they're saying. They're saying
Right.
that we're taxing the system and we're not paying the fair share. We need to have statistically say, or we need to get comfortable with saying, yeah, we don't really pay our fair share and everybody's got to get ready because we're going to have to pay our fair share. But I think that like having kind of this standard talking points, I think the problem is like the internet, right? And you can go look up any speech given by any NBAA president or any, association president. And they're like, okay, cool. You had the same talking points for 20 years. What's new? Right. So I don't know. I think that's kind of the interesting thing, but we are in the middle of it feels like a concerted effort against business aviation. I mean, you have the Wall Street Journal article, then this, and like, we need to be on our toes and have really good answers for when people come asking.
Yeah, and I think we need to unpack the issue in multiple ways. Look, there's the issue of FAA funding as a whole, the big pot of money, all the money that goes in through fuel taxes. And we talked about this on another episode, like how this all actually works. And do we pay our fair share? I think we do. And I don't even think that's the most critical part of the argument. I think that's the easiest political football for people to throw, to get ATC privatization. Like, that's what it comes down to, is like, some people think, a corporatized air traffic control system is better. Some people don't. Obviously, NBAA's position, AOPA's position for decades now has been no privatization. We don't want it because we don't want the airlines to be in charge. Which, fair point, there's some imbalances in scale here, in size and operations and everything else. Like there has to be a way to make it fair. But Dorothy Robin,
And government has to listen to business aviation and general aviation.
yes.
Privatization does not. If it's completely corporate, they don't have to listen to you, right? And so I think from that standpoint, I mean, that is an argument for bigger government because, in a government scenario, you have to listen to all parties and take them and weigh them all, relatively equally. Whereas in a
Right.
privatization, like the airlines will then dictate because they are the gorillas.
They're the gorilla in the room, right? But I mean, it kind of happens anyway. Like in some ways, when you think about like how much more lobbying does A4A Airlines for America have compared to the AOPOs and NBA and everybody else, like size is always going to be a factor. But Dorothy Robin, who is a former Clinton and Obama official, she's a transportation scholar. She went on there, and this is the first episode. For those who don't want to go and listen to the full 2 hours, I'll kind of give you like the relevant pieces to our industry. She went on there and said that corporate jets consume just as many resources as airliners. There's points that are wrong about that. And she says a blip is a blip, and every single movement the air traffic controller has to control for, they should be paying their fair share. And we can argue about how much the fair share is. Corporate jets that don't pay FET, which also was something missing from the show. They said that corporate jets don't pay FET. They do if they're chartered, but they didn't mention that. They all kind of approached this argument from their very like little sliver of information that they had and ways to attack. It's obviously attacks on both sides. But at the same time, I don't think that we had great responses to those accusations. Corporate jets, they contribute money to the fund. It is significantly less, but we also get significantly less out of the FAA. Think about, the oversight system. Think about how much larger the runways and the technology that has to be at Midway, Atlanta, all these like huge airports that airliners are going into. That's where the bulk of the funding is going into. So there's the fair share argument, which I honestly think is a little bit moot. I do think we should separate them in some way. Like, is ATC, corporatization and privatization, safer, more efficient, better at spending capital resources? Maybe it is. And I don't like that we just kind of toe the line in general aviation and private aviation and don't really think about the long term and like maybe it is a better solution. I wrote an op-ed about it, so you can go read it if you want to. But we didn't have good responses in this. I think there's plenty of good responses that you can make, how much of a burden airliners are versus GA. But one of the things that Ed said was airlines, it's like if you're going to dinner together, airlines are like, someone coming along and ordering appetizers, entrees, and dessert, and all you got was a salad. GA is like the people that just had the salad and they got to pay for everybody. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think we've all been at those dinners, right? But so here's my other argument, right? Is and we have to have better talking points, in my opinion, just like what you said. Let's take ground control, for example. Okay. Like just isolate, like if you isolate the different phases of ATC, right? You have ground and tower, you have departure
Center.
and arrival, and then you have center. Okay. If you look at ground alone and you go to a major airport, first of all, private jets typically will fly into the smaller airports that require way less staffing for ground control. So you want to talk about allocating basically 100% of the ground control budget to airlines. Okay, they get that one. The part I think that we have to address is like the arrivals and departures part. That's probably where there's the most amount of quote unquote conflict of capacity resources. And then you have center, which unless you're flying a really old Citation 2 or like a Honda jet, like light jet type stuff, you're flying 10,000 feet above where all the commercial airliners fly. So from yes, the controllers still have to control, but like you're not dodging traffic at 41. You're dodging the other private traffic at that point and, some space missiles, right? Like that's it. You're not dodging.
Or if you're a turboprop, you're nowhere near, up
yeah,
there.
or you're way below it, right? Or you have GA, which exists way below it. So it's really in that kind of approach departure that you really, I think, have a lot of conflict. And so how do we create I think the big question that we have to ask ourselves is how to create the talking points around the different phases and who uses more capacity resources of what, and then where's the division of budget going from like a financial standpoint. But again, just take ground and center and take everything else and call it 50-50 across that. Like business aviation does not use its fair, like it doesn't take up the resources compared to its paying its fair share in
Yeah.
just those two stages of flight alone.
But I think the narrative that is evolving right now, I mean, Dorothy said it pretty clearly. She didn't even blame AOPA, essentially. She said she put the blame almost squarely on NBAA. She said that general aviation pilots are easier to deal with, but NBAA is the one that you need to go talk to. And she told the host, like, yeah, you need to go speak to them. But, you know, what's happening now is that the narrative is becoming private aviation is blocking the evolution of the air traffic control system. I can see the narrative being formed. So, you know, I don't know how exactly we're going to start talking about this, but I do think we've got to be more willing and open to conversation, because if we sit here and say, absolutely not, never, no, don't even talk to us, absolutely not, that's how we're going to be painted. Whether or not the idea is good, we're going to be painted as the people that are just fighting it. And I don't think that that's a good approach. So we either need to, like, you know, start actually having some real conversations about what would be best and how to best organize resources and funding and capital investments. We're not there today. They just got 18 million, you know, $18 billion passed, but we're probably going to need 50 million was one of the things they were saying in the show. So this is just the beginning of the argument, but I wish everyone would be a little more open to thinking about what the best method of air traffic control actually is. Maybe there are some arguments for corporatization, but if we just like fight tooth and nail, we're going to get painted into a corner, and I don't want to see that happening.
Yep, no, I agree. Well, in happier news, talking about other functions of the FAA, Epic has delivered its 100th 1000 single engine turboprop aircraft, which is really exciting if you are in GA. So the FAA does clean sheet design. The E1000 represents a clean sheet approach to turboprop design, and hitting triple digits in deliveries shows that buyers are embracing this new category in aircraft that bridges the gap between traditional singles and light twins. This is if you've ever been in an E1000, like, it's a fantastic design. It's totally unique looking. And I won't say who, but I was definitely talking to a broker that said, I tell clients, don't buy serial number 1 through 100. Wait until serial number 101 and beyond before you start buying stuff. So the fact that Epic has reached that point is really big for the company, and it's a really cool aircraft. There's one based here in Chattanooga, actually. Fun fact.
Very nice. Yeah, I mean, look, to be honest, I hate to say this out loud, but I haven't really taken Epic kind of seriously for the last few years. I mean,
I
I
don't think a
always
lot
thought
of
of
people
it.
have. I don't think you're
Yeah,
alone in that stance.
it was a kit plane company. You know, it wasn't like a real airplane
Yeah.
company, but oh my gosh, I was looking at the specs on this thing. It's fantastic. I mean, cruise, you know, max cruise speed of 330 knots, useful load almost 3,000 pounds. I mean, this is a nice aircraft. PT6s. It's got the Garmin, everything up front, auto throttles, everything. So you got your auto lands, you got your auto brake. I mean, there's all this like cool technology in the cockpit. I'm definitely paying a lot more attention to Epic today than I used to be.
Yeah, it's a fantastic aircraft. I mean, I have met a couple of the people at Epic, and it's really an engineering culture. The one ding that Epic has to it, and it's just kind of unfortunate for general aviation in general, is they are owned by foreign investment. They are owned by the Chinese. So is
But made in
Cirrus.
Oregon.
Made in Oregon. So like
Yeah.
that's good. Cirrus is also technically owned by the Chinese. So like if you're gonna in Continental. So if you're gonna like point fingers, right? They're not the only ones. But they are made in Bend, Oregon, which is beautiful. And they are truly a pilot's aircraft. I mean, from a performance standpoint, it is unrivaled. The PC-12 in single engine turboprop obviously has more payload and space, but it's much slower. It does eke out the TBM 960 at cruise, and blows the M700 out of the water from a performance standpoint, all while burning, relatively low amounts of Jet A. And I think that now that they've hit the serial number 100 on the E1000, so the progression was the E1000, then the E1000GX, and then now they're on the E1000AX. And I think certification happened somewhere during the GX time frame.
2019, I believe. That's what I read.
Yeah, 2019. So it's been certified for 6 years. Clean sheet certification takes a long time, way longer than, iterations, right, on existing airframes. And so, now that they're actually in production, I mean, I would say that, Epic's definitely a real contender. They were not very serious 2 or 3 years ago. I mean, I'll
Right.
just be honest. Like from an insurance standpoint, you couldn't insure them. From a financing standpoint, they're hard to finance. From a pilot perspective, you couldn't find anybody who's trained on them. But now that they're kind of getting market penetration, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to start seeing fleet operators start taking this aircraft seriously for kind of, air taxi type operations. You
Hmm.
think about Nantucket to New York City, or,
Sure.
those kinds of routes up and down the west coast of California. I mean, I've talked to probably 4 or 5 well-known kind of people in the industry that are like, my dream plane is an Epic E1000. Like, that's what I want. That's what I'm leaning towards. Even
Yeah.
even people who work at other manufacturers, which is really funny.
Well, I mean, it's been like this renaissance. I think, the incredible technology that Garmin has come up with, which is basically just plug and play in a lot of different airplane or a lot of different airframes, plus when engines, you start sticking these like major components on these airframes. I mean, you have a real airplane, that honestly, I would much rather fly in a single engine turboprop that has all of this technology in it than a 30-year-old King Air with two engines. I mean, from a safety perspective, there are some legitimate arguments to be made here. I don't know if you'll always get passengers on a single engine aircraft, but it's an interesting time. I think very interesting technology, much more interesting to me than eVTOLs, but it probably doesn't get all the attention and funding like they do.
Yeah, that's a good point. Oh, there's I think Beta's going public. We're not going to cover that here, but I have heard rumors that Beta's going public via SPAC or an IPO. So, there's always eVTOL funding news, but frankly, we got tired of covering it, so we're talking about other stuff. Last topic of the day, while we wrap it up, as you're headed into the office or coming home from the office, getting about to go walk into the house, is Bel Air has acquired Red Wing from VistaJet. So the Vista Global is continuing to reshape the portfolio as they have kind of cut out a lot of their diversification and just focused on heavy aircraft. And so they have sold Red Wing Aeroplane Company to Bel Air, which is immediately rebranding the operation as Jet Excellence. Cute name.
Hmm.
This move highlights it's Vista continues to shed these Citation 10s. I am not spilling insider information. I've looked at those 10s like 4 or 5 times to finance them. So they've been
Hmm.
trying to sell them for a while. That
Yes.
has been something that's been attempting to happen for a long time. So it's good to see Vista finally getting rid of their 10s, but they floated out there for a while.
It's a tough airframe. Hard to keep in service. They're older, but I think this is really interesting from the leadership perspective. So if you guys haven't met, McQueen Campbell is one of the founders, at least one of the owners. Really nice guy. I think he's been in the industry for the last few years, relatively new to the industry, but he's also brought on Michael Vargo, who was a former executive at Mountain Air, who was very successful at running Citation 10s. So I think if anyone's can figure out what to do with them, they've got the right team to be able to do it. It's going to be a challenge. They're older airframes. Like you said, it took them a long time to sail for a reason, but hopefully they got a really good deal on them. And this is a significant fleet. They already had Bel Air 13 aircraft on their certificate before this was announced. So they're bringing scale, they're growing, and again, we like to see mergers and acquisitions happening. It's good and healthy for the industry. So wish them luck, and I guess we'll see where they end up.
Yeah, no kidding. It's you know, I think that the 10 has finally hit a capital cost point that like it doesn't really matter. Like as long as you kind of get some hours out of it, like it's you can kind of make the justification. And I think you can buy some really old clapped out 10s for like 1.9, 2.1. It's
Wow.
like at that point it's like, well, and people like to fly them still. I mean, surprisingly enough, people still
Passengers
do
like
love
them.
it. It is the
Yeah.
fastest super mid ever created. Passengers love them. It's bigger than a Sovereign. It's faster than a Sovereign. It looks wild on the ramp. And it's like anything over serial number to like 190, I think it's 190 or 195, doesn't have a lot of the maintenance problems that the early
Hmm.
serial numbers had. But good for them. I hope that they're taking a good bet. I mean, Baker flies all the time and they fly a bunch of Citation 10s. So if you're a Citation 10 operator, reach out to us, tell us how much you love it or how much you hate it, and
Oh
we'll be
yeah.
sure to cover it. One thing that I did want to do as we are wrapping up, and I promised that I would do this, we got a review, and so we're going to read it live on the air because we love those people who listen to the podcast and leave us a review. So if you want to sneak in a free, like a free ad read, leave us a review. It has to be
That's
5 stars.
creative.
But that is the way in which you could figure out how to kind of sponsor that VIP seat without having to pay anything. So here's an ad read, or here's a review that does not have an ad read in it. But this is from Joe Keel, FL. Perfect update for the drive to work. Jesse and Preston give a fresh and unbiased view of all the top news and topics in the private aviation industry. This podcast has been a game changer for me on my way to work every morning. It catches me up before I walk in the door. I look forward to the episode each week. So thank you, Joe. That means so much to us. Shout out to you. Another reminder, how can you get a shout out on the VIP seat is by sharing the newsletter with 2 people. Convince 2 people to sign up and we will give you a shout out live on the air. So go to thevipseat.com, sign up for the newsletter. The first one that you get, you forward it. Up at the top, there's a referral block. And as long as somebody clicks that link and signs up, then we're going to give you a shout out on the podcast. Go like and subscribe on YouTube. Go follow us on Apple Podcasts. Go follow us on Spotify. Tell your friends. That's the best way to grow this show. And we really do love getting your feedback. Send us an email or send us a DM on LinkedIn. Those are the 2 best ways to get a hold of us. Until next week, this is the VIP seat. We will see you then. Blue skies.